The rain came down in sheets, turning the narrow alley behind the grocery store into a river of oil-slicked water and discarded dreams. I pressed myself against the brick wall, trying to keep my last clean shirt dry while I waited for my shift to start. Minimum wage didn't cover laundromat fees, so every piece of clothing mattered. My name is Silas Moreau, and at 23, I'd already mastered the art of being invisible. In a world ruled by alphas, where omegas like me were viewed as either commodities or burdens, invisibility was survival. I'd learned to suppress my scent with the cheapest blockers I could find, to keep my eyes down, to never draw attention. The system worked. Mostly. I was 5 minutes early for my third shift of the day grocery store overnight stock from midnight to 6 a.m. when I heard it. A child's scream. Not the bratty tantrum kind. The genuine terror kind that made every protective instinct in my omega biology flare to life despite the suppressants. "Let me go. I want my daddy." The voice came from deeper in the alley, beyond the dumpsters where the sodium lights didn't quite reach. Every logical part of my brain screamed at me to walk away, to mind my own business, to not get involved. But my feet were already moving. I rounded the corner to find 3 men in dark clothing surrounding a small boy. He couldn't have been more than 5 years old, dressed in clothes that even my untrained eye recognized as expensive designer sneakers, a tailored jacket, the kind of outfit that cost more than I made in a month. The child was crying, struggling against the grip of the largest man who had him by the arm. "Stop squirming, you little brat," the man growled. "Your father will pay triple if we return you undamaged." Kidnappers. Professional ones by the look of it. The smart thing would be to run back to the main street and call the police. Let the authorities handle it. But the boy's terrified dark eyes found mine in the shadows, and I saw the desperate hope flare in them. He was just a child, someone's son, alone and scared. I'd been that child once. Different circumstances, but the same crushing fear. My hand closed around a broken piece of pipe lying near the dumpster. "Hey." My voice came out stronger than I felt. "Let him go." All 3 men turned to look at me. The one holding the boy actually laughed. "What do we have here? A hero?" He looked me up and down, taking in my threadbare jacket and worn shoes. "Run along, Omega. This doesn't concern you." He could scent me even through the blockers. Great. I said let him go. I raised the pipe, trying to look more confident than I felt. The second kidnapper, shorter but built like a brick wall, stepped toward me. "You really want to die for some rich kid who doesn't even know you exist?" "I don't want to die at all," I admitted, "but I'm not walking away either." What happened next was chaos. The brick wall kidnapper lunged at me. I swung the pipe wildly, more luck than skill, and connected with his shoulder. He howled in pain and stumbled backward. The third kidnapper pulled a knife. I barely had time to register the blade before the boy, brave, stupid, wonderful child, bit down hard on his captor's hand. The man yelped and loosened his grip just enough for the boy to break free. "Run!" I shouted at him. But instead of running away, the child ran toward me, hiding behind my legs like I was some kind of shield worth sheltering behind. The man with the knife advanced. I could see the calculation in his eyes. How quickly could he eliminate the witness? I pushed the boy behind me and raised the pipe again. My hands were shaking. The kidnappers could probably smell my fear, but I stood my ground. "You're making a mistake," Knife Man said. "Walk away now, and we'll forget this happened." "Not without him," I replied. He moved fast, faster than I expected. The knife flashed toward me, and I threw up the pipe to block it. Metal screeched against metal, and the impact sent vibrations up my arm that made my bones ache. Then car headlights flooded the alley. Multiple vehicles, expensive ones by the sound of the engines, screeched to a halt at the alley's entrance. Doors slammed open, and suddenly the narrow space was flooded with men in black suits moving with military precision. But it wasn't the security team that made the kidnappers freeze in terror. It was the man who stepped out of the center vehicle. Even at a distance, even in the rain and shadows, his presence hit like a physical force. Tall, broad-shouldered, moving with the fluid confidence of someone who'd never questioned his right to command. His scent cut through the rain and garbage smell like a blade pine and smoke and something wild that made my omega instincts sit up and take notice despite the suppressants. Alpha. And not just any alpha. "Daddy," the boy behind me, cried out in relief and tried to run forward. I caught him by the shoulders, keeping him behind me. Until I knew for certain these people were safe, I wasn't letting them go. The powerful Alpha's eyes, even from this distance, I could see they were a striking amber color locked onto mine, then dropped to the child I was protecting. Kai! His voice was controlled, but I could hear the barely restrained emotion underneath. Are you hurt? The man saved me, Kai said, clutching my wet jacket. He fought the bad men. The Alpha's gaze snapped back to me, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly seen. Not dismissed, not looked through seen. It was terrifying. His security team had already surrounded the kidnappers, who were smart enough not to resist. But the Alpha Kai's father walked straight past them, straight toward me. I should have stepped back, should have handed over the child and disappeared before questions were asked. But my legs wouldn't move. He stopped 3 feet away, close enough that I could see the way his jaw was clenched, the careful control it took for him to not just snatch his son into his arms. May I? He asked quietly, holding out his hands toward Kai. The please was implied. This terrifying man was asking my permission. I nodded and gently guided Kai forward. The transformation was immediate. The moment Kai was in his arms, the Alpha's entire demeanor shifted. He dropped to his knees on the wet pavement, pulling his son close, burying his face in the child's hair. His shoulders shook once, just once, before he locked it down again. I'm okay, Daddy, Kai said, patting his father's shoulder. The nice man protected me. The Alpha pulled back just enough to check Kai for injuries, his hands gentle despite their size. When he was satisfied his son was unharmed, he stood, keeping Kai cradled against his chest. Then those amber eyes found mine again. You saved my son. It wasn't a question. Anyone would have done the same, I said, which was a lie. Most people would have called the cops and kept walking. No, he said simply. They wouldn't have. He shifted Kai to one arm, the child clinging to him like a koala, and pulled out his phone with the other. Marcus, yes, I have him. 3 suspects in custody. And send medical. I'm fine, I said quickly. You're bleeding. I looked down. There was a gash on my forearm I hadn't even felt, blood mixing with the rain. The adrenaline must have masked the pain. It's nothing. I need to get to work. I was already going to be late. I couldn't afford to lose this job. What's your name? The Alpha asked. I hesitated. Giving my name felt dangerous in a way I couldn't articulate. But those amber eyes were still on me, waiting. Silas, I said finally. Silas Moreau. He nodded once, filing it away. I'm Kieran Ashford. This is my son, Kai. Ashford. My brain stuttered to a stop. Kieran Ashford, owner of Ashford Industries, the largest tech conglomerate in the country, billionaire, Alpha Prime, unofficial king of the city's most powerful pack. I'd just saved the Alpha King's son. I really need to go, I said, backing away. This was too much. People like Kieran Ashford didn't interact with people like me except to give orders or dismissals. Wait, Kieran stepped forward. You're injured, and you saved my son's life. The least I can do is... You don't owe me anything, I interrupted. I'm glad Kai's safe. That's enough. A black SUV pulled up, and a woman in a suit stepped out carrying a first aid kit. Mr. Ashford, medical is here. For him, Kieran said, nodding toward me. Really, I'm fine. Silas. The way he said my name made my Omega biology sit up and pay attention in ways that terrified me. Please, let them check the wound. It wasn't a command, not quite, but it was clear he wasn't used to being refused. The medical professional was efficient, cleaning and bandaging my arm in under 5 minutes. While she worked, Kieran kept Kai close, murmuring quietly to his son. The man who saved you, his name is Silas, Kieran was saying. Can you say thank you? Kai peeked at me from the safety of his father's arms. Thank you for saving me, Silas. My heart clenched. You're welcome, Kai. When the medic finished, I tried again to leave. I really do have work. What kind of work? Kieran asked. Overnight stock at the grocery store. Something flickered in his expression. You work nights? I work 3 shifts, I said without thinking, then immediately regretted it. 3 shifts, Kieran repeated slowly. Where? I shouldn't answer. I should just walk away. But those amber eyes were still on me, and my stupid Omega biology was making it very difficult to deny him anything. Coffee shop in the morning, data entry in the afternoon, grocery overnight, I said, I should go. My manager doesn't like excuses. You're not going anywhere, Kieran said. My spine stiffened. Excuse me? That came out wrong, he said, though he didn't look particularly apologetic. What I mean is, you saved my son's life. That deserves more than a bandage and a thank you. I don't want money, I said quickly. I'm not offering money, Kieran replied. I'm offering dinner, tomorrow evening, so Kai can properly thank his hero. This was a bad idea. Every instinct I had screamed it was a bad idea. I don't think... Please? Kai looked up at me with those big dark eyes. I want to draw you a thank you picture. Damn it. One dinner, I heard myself say. But then we're even. Kieran's lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. Deal. Give Marcus your contact information and address. I'll have a car pick you up tomorrow at 7. I can take the bus. Silas. There was that voice again. Please. I gave Marcus my information, accepted Kieran's coat when he draped it over my shoulders. You're soaked through, and somehow ended up being driven home in one of the SUVs despite my protests. As I watched the convoy of expensive vehicles disappear into the night, I realized my hands were still shaking. Not from fear anymore. From the lingering effect of being in Kieran Ashford's presence, from the way my omega biology had responded to his alpha pheromones even through my suppressants. I was in so much trouble. The car that picked me up the next evening was worth more than I'd earn in 10 years. I'd spent the day in a state of low-level panic, second-guessing my decision approximately every 30 seconds. I'd even looked up Kieran Ashford online, a mistake that only made things worse. The man wasn't just wealthy, he was a different species of wealthy. Ashford Industries had revolutionized tech manufacturing. Kieran had inherited the company at 25 when his parents died in a car accident, and instead of running it into the ground like everyone predicted, he'd tripled its value in 5 years. He was 31 now, unmated. Every gossip blog had theories about why such an eligible alpha prime remained unpaired. I'd closed the browser before I could read more. It didn't matter. After tonight, I'd never see him again. The driver, Marcus, the same man from last night, held the car door open. Good evening, Mr. Moreau. Just Silas, I said automatically. Mr. Moreau makes me sound like someone important. You saved the heir to Ashford Industries, Marcus replied evenly. I'd say that makes you quite important. The penthouse was on the top floor of the city's most exclusive residential building. I'd walked past it 1,000 times, never imagining I'd actually go inside. The elevator ride alone took longer than my usual commute. When the doors opened, Kieran was waiting. He'd traded the suit for dark slacks and a charcoal gray sweater that did absolutely nothing to make him less intimidating. If anything, the casual clothes made him more overwhelming, like glimpsing the real person under the armor. Silas, he said, and my name and his voice still did strange things to my nervous system. Thank you for coming. You didn't give me much choice, I replied before I could stop myself. His lips twitched. You could have refused. Could I have? With Kai's hopeful eyes in my memory? Silas, the boy himself came running from deeper in the apartment, waving a piece of paper. Look what I made you! I knelt down to his level to accept the drawing. It showed 2 stick figures, one small, one tall, holding hands. Above them, he'd drawn a sun with a smiling face. That's you and me, Kai explained. After you saved me, you're a hero, so I put a cape on you. The tall stick figure did indeed have a red triangle attached to its back. This is amazing, Kai, I said, and meant it. Thank you. You're supposed to put it on your fridge, Kai informed me seriously. Then I definitely will. Kai beamed and grabbed my hand. Come on! Daddy made dinner and there's dessert and I helped and everything. He dragged me into a dining room that probably cost more to furnish than my entire apartment building. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city lights. A table that could seat 12 was set for 3, with Kai's seat clearly placed between the 2 adult places. I hope you like pasta, Kieran said, appearing with serving dishes. Kai requested his favorite, and I'm a disaster at cooking anything more complicated. The domesticity of the image this powerful alpha serving homemade pasta was so unexpected I almost laughed. Dinner was strange. Strange because it was nice. Kai chattered constantly, telling me about his school and his friends and his favorite cartoons. Kieran listened with the kind of focused attention that suggested he genuinely cared about every word his son said. And, occasionally, those amber eyes would drift to me. So, Kieran said when Kai paused for breath, Marcus mentioned you work 3 jobs. That's not really dinner conversation, I deflected. Silas works very hard, Kai announced. That's why he's a hero. Heroes work hard. Kai's right, Kieran said. Though I'm curious what you're working toward. School? I should deflect again, but something about the genuine interest in his expression made me answer honestly. I'm trying to save enough for community college, I admitted. I want to be a teacher, elementary school maybe. Kids that age still think learning is fun. Kieran's expression shifted into something I couldn't read. That's why you stepped in last night. You have protective instincts toward children. I have protective instincts toward people who can't protect themselves, I corrected. Kai just happened to be 5 years old. Still, Kieran said quietly, not many people would have risked what you did. The weight in his voice made me uncomfortable, like I'd done something extraordinary instead of just reacting. Anyone would. No, Kieran interrupted gently. They wouldn't. I've spent all day reviewing security footage and interviewing witnesses. 17 people walked past that alley while my son was being taken. Not one of them stopped. The number hit me like a punch. I didn't know what to say to that. You put yourself between my son and men with weapons, Kieran continued. You didn't know help was coming. For all you knew, you were going to die in that alley. But I didn't, I said. And Kai's safe. That's what matters. Kieran looked at me for a long moment. Then, how much do you make? Total? From all 3 jobs? That's definitely not dinner conversation, I said firmly. Humor me. I shouldn't answer, but those amber eyes were still on me. Enough to cover rent and food, I said. Barely. What if you didn't have to work 3 jobs? Kieran asked. What if you could focus on school instead? That's not realistic for people like me, I said. I don't have family money or scholarships. I work or I starve. That's just how it is. It doesn't have to be. I set down my fork carefully. Mr. Ashford. Kieran, I corrected. If this is going where I think it's going, I appreciate the thought, but I don't take charity. It's not charity, Kieran said. It's compensation. For what? I already said I don't want money for last night. Not for last night, Kieran clarified. For now. I'm offering you a job. I blinked. A job. Kai needs a full-time nanny. Kieran said. Someone who will prioritize his safety and well-being above all else. Someone he already likes and trusts. Someone who's already proven they'll protect him. My brain stuttered trying to process this. You want me to be Kai's nanny? Yes. You don't know anything about me, I protested. I could be anyone. I know you risked your life to save a child you'd never met. Kieran replied. I know you work yourself to exhaustion trying to build a better future. I know my son trusts you, and Kai is an excellent judge of character. Can Silas stay? Kai asked hopefully. Please, Daddy? I like him. Kieran's expression softened looking at his son. That's up to Silas, little wolf. They were both looking at me now, waiting. This was insane. Absolutely insane. I was a minimum wage Omega from the slums. Kieran Ashford was the alpha prime of the city's most powerful pack. Our worlds didn't intersect. They weren't supposed to intersect. But I was so tired. Tired of working 3 jobs and still going to bed hungry. Tired of counting every penny. Tired of knowing that one medical emergency or missed shift would leave me homeless. And Kai. Kai was a sweet child who needed protection, who'd already been targeted once. What would the job actually entail? I heard myself ask. Kieran's eyes gleamed with something that might have been satisfaction. Full-time care for Kai. You'd live here, there's a guest suite that would be yours. You'd get him ready for school, pick him up, plan activities, basically be his primary caregiver when I'm at work. What about when you're not at work? Then we'd both be caring for him, Kieran said. This would be a partnership, Silas. I'm not trying to replace myself as Kai's father. I'm trying to make sure he has someone trustworthy watching over him every moment I can't. It sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. I need time to think about it, I said. Fair enough, Kieran replied. Take as long as you need. But Kai's disappointed face made my chest ache. How about a trial? I suggested. 2 weeks. If it works out for both of us, we can make it permanent. Kieran's smile was small but genuine. That sounds reasonable. When can you start? I need to give notice at my current jobs. I'll compensate you for any lost wages, Kieran said, and pay a signing bonus to cover your rent through the transition. He really wanted this. Or, more accurately, he really wanted to ensure Kai's safety, and I was the solution he'd decided on. Okay, I said, and felt like I was jumping off a cliff. Okay, 2-week trial, but I'm keeping my apartment, just in case. Just in case, Kieran agreed, but something in his tone suggested he thought this arrangement would be permanent long before the 2 weeks were up. I left the penthouse 3 hours later with a signed contract, a check that made my hands shake, and Kai's drawing carefully protected in my bag. I'd just agreed to move into the Alpha King's home. What could possibly go wrong? Moving into Kieran's penthouse felt like stepping into a different reality. The guest suite he'd assigned me was larger than my entire apartment. It had its own bathroom with a rainfall shower, a walk-in closet that made me laugh because I owned approximately 7 outfits total, and a bed so soft I was afraid I'd oversleep my first morning. I didn't. Old habits died hard. I woke at 5 a.m., my usual time, and spent 30 minutes convincing myself I was actually allowed to use the expensive coffee maker in the kitchen. Good morning. I jumped, nearly dropping the mug. Kieran stood in the doorway wearing athletic clothes and a light sheen of sweat. Sorry, he said. Didn't mean to startle you. I went for a run. At 5 in the morning? Old habit, he replied, moving to pour his own coffee. I don't sleep much. We stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the city waking up beyond the windows. Kai doesn't wake until 7, Kieran said. But if you need anything before then, I'll be in my office, first door on the right down the hall. Okay, I said. Thank you. He nodded and left, and I was alone in a kitchen worth more than I'd make in a lifetime, drinking coffee I definitely couldn't afford to buy. What was my life right now? At 6:45, I knocked on Kai's door. Good morning. Time to wake up. A muffled groan emerged from under the blankets. 5 more minutes. I smiled and pulled open the curtains, letting morning light flood the room. Nice try, but your dad said you have school. Kai sat up, hair adorably mussed, and grinned when he saw me. Silas, you're really here. I really am. Now come on, let's get you ready. The morning routine was surprisingly smooth. Kai chattered while I helped him get dressed and brush his teeth. Kieran joined us for breakfast pancakes I'd made, which Kai declared were even better than Daddy's, and then it was time for school. I can take him, Kieran offered. That's literally my job now, I pointed out. True, Kieran conceded, but Marcus will drive you. I'm not comfortable with you taking public transportation with Kai, not after the kidnapping attempt. That made sense, even if having a driver still felt surreal. Kai's school was exactly the kind of elite private academy I'd expected. High walls, security at every entrance, teachers who probably made more than I used to. Be good, I told Kai at drop-off. I'll be back at 3 to pick you up. Promise? He asked, suddenly looking uncertain. My heart clenched. I promise. I'm not going anywhere. His smile returned. Okay, bye, Silas. The drive back to the penthouse was quiet. Marcus seemed content with silence, which I appreciated. Mr. Ashford wanted me to give you this, Marcus said when we arrived, handing me a sleek black credit card. For anything Kai needs, or anything you need while caring for Kai. I stared at the platinum rectangle. I can't. It's part of your employment, Marcus said gently. He was very clear that you're to use it without hesitation. I pocketed the card but had no intention of using it for anything beyond absolute necessities. The afternoon was strange. I had nothing to do, no job to rush to, no shift to cover. I cleaned the already immaculate kitchen, did some meal planning, and finally settled in the living room with a book from Kieran's extensive library. I must have dozed off because, the next thing I knew, a gentle hand was shaking my shoulder. Silas, it's 2:30. Time to get Kai. I jerked awake to find Kieran standing over me, looking amused. Sorry, I said, scrambling up. I didn't mean to fall asleep. You've been working 3 jobs up until yesterday, Kieran said. You're probably exhausted. There's no shame in resting. I'm supposed to be working. And you will be. when Kai gets home, Kieran interrupted. But right now, you have some downtime. Use it. Read, sleep, whatever you need. It felt wrong, like I was stealing from him somehow. But I didn't argue, just grabbed my things and headed to the car. Kai was bouncing with energy when I picked him up. Silas, I told my friends about you. They want to know if you're really a hero. I'm really not, I said, buckling him into his car seat. You are, Kai insisted. You saved me from bad guys. That makes you a hero. The next few days fell into a rhythm. Mornings with Kai, afternoons of uncertain free time where I felt guilty for not working, evenings helping with homework and dinner, then bedtime stories before Kai fell asleep. Kieran was around more than I expected. He worked from his home office most days, emerging periodically to check on us or spend time with Kai. He never hovered, but I could tell he was always aware of where his son was. On Thursday, Kai had a play date. Another child from school was coming over, which meant another parent was coming too. I was anxious about it for reasons I couldn't articulate. The doorbell rang at 4 p.m. I opened it to find a woman in designer clothes holding the hand of a boy about Kai's age. You must be the new nanny, she said, looking me up and down with barely concealed judgment. I'm Vivian Blackwood. This is my son, James. Silas Moreau, I replied. Come in. Kai's excited to see James. The boys ran off to Kai's room immediately. Vivian stayed. So, she said, settling onto the couch like she owned it. You're the one everyone's talking about. I'm sorry? The Omega who saved Kai, she clarified. It's all over the pack gossip channels. People are very curious about you. There's nothing to be curious about, I said. I just work here. Vivian's smile was sharp. And how exactly did Kieran convince you to take the position? He must be paying quite well. The implication in her tone made my hackles rise. He's paying me what the job is worth, I said evenly. And living here, Vivian added. How convenient. For Kai's safety, yes. Of course, Vivian's eyes gleamed. Though I imagine the other benefits aren't bad either. Being so close to an unmated Alpha Prime, living in luxury, access to his wealth. I understood now. She thought I was here to trap Kieran. To use Kai as a path to the Alpha King himself. I'm here to take care of Kai, I said firmly. Nothing else. Sure, Vivian replied, though you can't blame people for wondering. An unmated Omega living in close quarters with an unmated Alpha? It's natural to assume. Vivian. Kieran's voice cut across the room like a blade. He stood in the doorway to his office, and the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Kieran, Vivian said, her tone overly bright, I didn't know you were home. Clearly. He moved into the living room, positioning himself subtly between Vivian and me. I assume you're here for James? Yes, the boys are having such a lovely time. Then perhaps you should check on them, Kieran suggested, rather than interrogating my employee. Vivian's smile strained. I was just making conversation. No, Kieran replied. You were making assumptions. I'd appreciate it if you didn't. The tension was thick enough to cut. After an awkward moment, Vivian excused herself to check on the boys. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I'm sorry about that, Kieran said quietly. It's fine. I'm used to people making assumptions about Omegas. It's not fine, Kieran replied, and you shouldn't have to be used to it. He looked tired suddenly, worn down by something I didn't understand. Has it been like this all week? I asked. People gossiping? I don't pay attention to gossip, Kieran said. But yes, the pack is interested in the new development. Should I be worried? No, his voice was firm. You're under my protection. Anyone who has a problem with you has a problem with me. The weight of that statement settled over me. Protection from the Alpha Prime wasn't a small thing. It was a declaration. Vivian collected James 20 minutes later, her goodbye clipped and cold. I'm sorry if I caused problems, I said after they left. Kieran shook his head. You didn't cause anything. Some people just can't stand to see others succeed beyond what they've decided is that person's place. She thinks I'm trying to trap you, I said bluntly. I know. Kieran's expression was unreadable. Does that bother you? That she thinks it? Yes. That she's wrong? Also yes. Something flickered in Kieran's amber eyes. Good to know we're on the same page. Except I wasn't entirely sure we were. Because Vivian's words had planted a seed of worry. I was an unmated Omega living in close quarters with an unmated Alpha. Biological proximity like this, it could complicate things. Especially when I'd already noticed how my suppressants seemed less effective around Kieran's pheromones. But I couldn't afford to think about that. This was a job, a good job that was changing my life. I couldn't risk it by developing feelings for my employer. No matter how gentle he was with his son, no matter how he looked at me sometimes like I was something precious, no matter how much my Omega biology wanted to purr every time he was near, this was just a job. I had to keep telling myself that. The end of the 2-week trial arrived faster than I expected. I'd fallen into the rhythm of life at the penthouse. Morning routines with Kai, afternoons organizing activities, evenings when Kieran would join us for dinner and I'd see glimpses of the man beneath the Alpha Prime armor. He was good with Kai. Patient, attentive, affectionate, in ways that made my chest ache, the kind of father I wished I'd had. And he was kind to me. Not in the distant, professional way an employer should be, but genuine warmth. He asked about my day, remembered small details I mentioned, left notes thanking me for things that were literally my job. It was getting harder to maintain professional distance. So, Kieran said over dinner on day 13, the trial period is almost over. My stomach clenched. Yes. Kai, what do you think? Should we ask Silas to stay permanently? Kai's eyes went wide. Yes, please. Silas is the best. I couldn't help but smile. I don't know about that. You are, Kai insisted. You make good pancakes and you read funny voices and you always pick me up on time and you're nice. High praise, Kieran said, his lips twitching. Silas, what do you say? I looked around the penthouse that had started to feel like home. At Kai, who'd wormed his way into my heart. At Kieran, whose presence made my Omega biology react in ways I couldn't control. This was dangerous, but walking away felt impossible. I'll stay, I said, on one condition. Kieran's eyebrow rose. Which is? I want to enroll in community college, part-time, I said. Evening classes, twice a week. I'll arrange my schedule around Kai's needs, but I need to keep working toward my own goals. Something warm flickered in Kieran's expression. That's not a condition, Silas. That's something I should have offered from the start. Of course you can attend classes. Marcus will drive you, and I'll make sure my schedule accommodates. I can take the bus. No. Kieran's tone was gentle but firm. You're part of this household now. That means you use the resources available, please. There was that please again, the one that made my Omega biology sit up and beg. Okay, I agreed. Thank you. Yay! Kai bounced in his seat. Silas is staying forever. Not forever, just until this arrangement stopped working. Until Kieran met someone, or Kai got older and didn't need a nanny anymore. But I didn't say that. I just smiled and helped Kai with dessert. That night, I lay in my suite thinking about how much my life had changed in 2 weeks. I had stability, safety, a purpose. I was happy. That should have been enough. So why did I feel like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop? The shoe dropped 3 days later. I was picking Kai up from school when I noticed the car. Black sedan, tinted windows parked across the street. The same car had been there yesterday. My instincts prickled. I ushered Kai to the vehicle quickly. Marcus, did you notice that black sedan? The one that's been following you for 2 days? Marcus replied calmly. Yes, Mr. Ashford is aware. My blood went cold. Someone's following us? Following you specifically, Marcus corrected. I've reported it. Mr. Ashford is handling it. Silas? Kai looked worried. Are the bad guys back? No, sweetie, I said, forcing calm into my voice. Everything's fine. Marcus is just being extra careful. But my hands were shaking the entire drive home. Kieran was waiting in the penthouse, and the look on his face told me this was serious. Kai, go play in your room for a bit, he said. I need to talk to Silas. Once Kai was gone, Kieran gestured me to sit. The car following you belongs to my cousin Drake, he said without preamble. He's been investigating you. Why? Because he's a paranoid asshole who thinks everyone has ulterior motives, Kieran replied. He doesn't approve of me hiring you. Because I'm an Omega? Because you're close to Kai, Kieran clarified. Drake has his own ideas about who should be in my son's life. He's made it clear he thinks you're a security risk. I stood up. Maybe I should leave. No. Kieran stood too, closing the distance between us. You're not leaving because my cousin is being difficult. You're here because Kai needs you, because I trust you. Drake's opinion doesn't matter. But if he's investigating me, what if he finds something he can use against you? Kieran's expression softened. Silas, I had you thoroughly vetted before I offered you this job. I know about your background, the foster care system, the shelters, the jobs you've worked. I know, and none of it changes my decision. The fact that he knew about all my worst moments should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt freeing. He knew, and he still wanted me here. I'm not going anywhere, Kieran said quietly. And neither are you. Drake will have to get over it. But Drake didn't get over it. That weekend, he showed up at the penthouse. I answered the door to find an alpha who looked enough like Kieran to be unsettling, but whose expression was cold where Kieran's was warm. You must be the nanny, Drake said, brushing past me without invitation. Where's my cousin? Mr. Ashford is with Kai. I'm here, Drake. Kieran appeared, Kai on his hip. His voice was pleasant, but his eyes were steel. What do you want? To talk sense into you? Drake replied. This is ridiculous, Kieran. Hiring some random Omega off the street to raise your heir? Silas saved my son's life, Kieran said evenly. He's not some random Omega. He's a nobody with nothing, Drake countered. For all you know, he staged the whole kidnapping to get close to you. The accusation hit like a physical blow. That's enough. Kieran's voice dropped to a dangerous register. You're out of line. Am I? Or am I the only one thinking clearly? Drake's eyes raked over me with disgust. Look at him, Kieran. You're one of the most powerful alphas in the country, and you've let this slum Omega into your home, into your son's life. What do you think people are saying? I don't care what people are saying, Kieran replied, and you need to leave, now. Daddy? Kai's small voice cut through the tension. Why is Uncle Drake being mean to Silas? Drake's expression flickered. Kai, your father is making a mistake. Get out, Kieran said, and don't come back until you can be civil. Drake left, but his parting words echoed, This won't end well, Kieran. Mark my words. After he was gone, Kieran set Kai down. Go to your room, little wolf. I need to talk to Silas. Once we were alone, I spoke first. Maybe he's right. He's not. Kieran, he's family. And he's not wrong about me being a nobody. Stop. Kieran crossed to me, and suddenly we were standing too close. You are not a nobody, Silas. You're intelligent, capable, and kind. You make my son laugh. You've brought life to this apartment that's been missing since. He stopped himself. Since what? I asked quietly. Since Kai's mother died. Kieran said. 3 years ago. Childbirth complications. I've been going through the motions, working, raising Kai, but not really living. You changed that. The confession hung between us. I'm just the nanny, I whispered. You're not just anything, Kieran replied. And I'm tired of pretending I hired you solely for Kai's benefit. My heart stopped. What? I was drawn to you from the moment I saw you in that alley, Kieran admitted, standing between my son and danger, terrified but refusing to back down. And every day since, watching you with Kai, seeing you bloom without 3 jobs crushing you, Silas, this stopped being just about childcare weeks ago. I should step back. Should remind him this was professional. Should remember all the reasons this was a terrible idea. But I didn't. I can't afford to lose this job, I said instead. I can't go back to how things were. Then don't, Kieran said. Stay, not as an employee, as my mate. The world tilted. You don't mean that, I said. You barely know me. I know enough, Kieran replied. I know you make me want to be better. I know Kai loves you. I know that every time I'm near you, my alpha instincts go haywire, wanting to protect you, provide for you, claim you. That's just biology, I protested weakly. Is it? Kieran's hand came up to cup my face. Then why do I lie awake thinking about your smile? Why do I rush home from meetings just to see you? Biology doesn't explain how much I care about you, Silas. I was drowning in his scent, in the proximity, in the impossibility of what he was offering. I need time, I managed. This is too much, too fast. Kieran's thumb brushed my cheek. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. He stepped back, giving me space to breathe. I should check on Kai, I said. Silas? Kieran called as I reached the hallway. For what it's worth, I meant every word. I fled to my room and locked the door. Then spent the next hour trying to convince myself that accepting Kieran's feelings wasn't the most dangerous thing I could possibly do. I woke up knowing something was wrong. My skin was too hot, too sensitive. The sheets felt scratchy against my oversensitive skin, and there was an ache low in my belly that I recognized with mounting horror. Heat. I couldn't be going into heat. I was on suppressants, strong ones. But my omega biology was rebelling against months of chemical suppression, and it had chosen the worst possible time to do it. Kieran's scent was everywhere, in the walls, the air, even my clothes from being in his space for weeks. My body was responding to proximity to an unmated alpha, and the suppressants were failing. I managed to stumble to the bathroom and splash cold water on my face. I had maybe 12 hours before the heat hit full force. I needed to leave, get back to my apartment where I could ride this out alone. My hands shook as I pulled on clothes. Every movement made me whimper. The door to my suite opened before I reached it. Kieran stood there, and his eyes went wide as my scent hit him. Heat pheromones were rolling off me in waves, impossible to suppress now. Silas, his voice was strained. You need to tell me you're going into heat so I can leave. Now. I am, I managed. I need to go. My apartment. You can't go anywhere like this. Kieran stepped back, giving me space, but his hands were clenched at his sides. It's not safe. You'd be vulnerable on the street. I can't stay here, I said desperately. Not near you. Not when. I'll leave, Kieran said immediately. I'll take Kai and go to a hotel. Marcus can stay with you. Make sure you have everything you need. It was the right solution, the only solution. So why did my omega biology scream in protest at the thought of Kieran leaving? Okay, I whispered. Go, please. Kieran's jaw was so tight I thought it might break. The master suite is scent-saturated. It'll be more comfortable for you than your room. Use it. I'll tell Marcus to bring you food and water. He left before I could protest. 10 minutes later, the penthouse was empty except for Marcus, who knocked on my door with professional courtesy. Mr. Ashford asked me to give you this. He handed me a sealed bag. His unwashed clothes, for nesting. He said it might help. The thoughtfulness of the gesture made my eyes burn. I took the bag and locked myself in Kieran's suite. The heat hit hard. I'd never experienced it like this. Alone, yes, but never in a space so thoroughly saturated with alpha pheromones. My body was convinced Kieran was nearby, that my alpha was going to take care of me. But he wasn't here. He'd left to keep me safe from an unwanted claiming. The rational part of my brain knew this was right. The omega part was devastated. I built a nest on Kieran's bed, using his clothes and pillows, burying myself in his scent. It helped. Not enough, but some. Marcus checked on me every 2 hours, leaving food I couldn't eat and water I couldn't taste. Everything smelled wrong. Everything, except Kieran's scent. Day 2 of the heat was worse. I called Marcus at 3 a.m., desperate. I know, Marcus said gently, but he can't come back. Not until your heat breaks. Tell him, I gasped through a wave of need. Tell him I'm sorry. There's nothing to apologize for, Marcus replied. Your heat is natural. He's just doing what's necessary to keep you safe. But I didn't feel safe. I felt alone in a way I'd never experienced before. On day 3, the heat finally began to break. The crushing need faded to a manageable ache. My thoughts cleared. Shame flooded in to replace the desperation. I'd spent 3 days in Kieran's bed, surrounded by his scent, whimpering for an alpha who wasn't mine to want. When I finally emerged from the suite, Marcus was waiting. Mr. Ashford called, he said. He wanted to know if you were ready for him to come home. I should say yes. Should act like nothing had happened. Give me a few hours, I said instead. I need to process. Marcus nodded, understanding. I spent those hours cleaning Kieran's suite, erasing every trace of my heat. Washing sheets, opening windows, trying to pretend I hadn't just spent 72 hours in the most vulnerable state of my life, desperately wanting a man I couldn't have. When Kieran finally came home, Kai ran to hug me immediately. "I missed you," Kai said. "Daddy said you were sick. Are you better now?" "Much better," I assured him, ignoring how Kieran's scent made my still sensitive body react. After Kai was in bed, Kieran found me in the kitchen. "Silas." I didn't turn around. "If you want me to leave." "I don't want you to leave," Kieran interrupted. "I want to make sure you're okay." "I'm fine." "You went into heat in my home," Kieran said quietly. "That's not fine. That's my fault for not realizing the suppressants would fail with constant alpha proximity." I finally turned to face him. "It's not your fault. It's biology." Still, Kieran looked exhausted. Those 3 days, knowing you were in heat, needing comfort I couldn't provide, it was torture. "You did the right thing," I said firmly, staying away. "Did I?" Kieran asked. "Because my alpha was screaming at me the entire time to come home, to take care of you, to—" He cut himself off. "To what?" I asked. "To claim you," Kieran admitted. "To make you mine permanently so you'd never have to suffer through heat alone again." The confession hung between us. "But you didn't," I whispered, "because you respect me enough to let me choose." "Yes." I crossed the kitchen to him, stood close enough to feel his heat. "What if I'm tired of choosing the safe option?" I asked. "What if I want to choose you?" Kieran's eyes widened. "Silas." "I went into heat surrounded by your scent," I continued, "and all I could think was that you weren't there, that I wanted you there. Not just any alpha, you specifically." "You don't know what you're saying," Kieran replied, but his voice was strained. "Heat can confuse feelings." "The heat is over," I pointed out, "and I still want you." Kieran's control visibly cracked. "If we do this, if we start this, I won't be able to let you go. Do you understand that?" "Good," I said, "because I don't want to be let go." He kissed me then, and it was everything I'd imagined and more. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kieran rested his forehead against mine. "Kai comes first," he said, "always." "I know," I replied. "I wouldn't want it any other way." "And I want to do this right," Kieran continued. "Court you properly, let you finish school, build something real, not just biological need." "Okay," I agreed, smiling. "We'll do it your way." "Thank you," Kieran whispered and kissed me again. This was crazy, impossible. A slum omega and the alpha prime of the city's most powerful pack. But somehow, it felt exactly right. The courtship that followed was unlike anything I could have imagined. Kieran was methodical about it, planning dates, sending flowers to my college classes, leaving notes, thanking me for small kindnesses. He was courting me the traditional way, showing the pack and the world that this wasn't just biology or convenience. Our first official date was at a small Italian restaurant 3 weeks after the heat. "I wanted somewhere quiet," Kieran explained as we settled into a private booth. "Somewhere we could actually talk without pack politics interfering." "This is nice," I said, looking around at the intimate lighting and soft music. "Though I'm underdressed." I was wearing my nicest clothes, which still meant clearance rack compared to Kieran's tailored suit. "You look perfect," Kieran said, and the way he looked at me made me believe it. Over wine and pasta, we talked. Really talked, in a way we hadn't been able to when I was just the nanny. "Tell me about your family," Kieran asked. "I know the basics from the background check, but I want to hear it from you." I hesitated. My past wasn't pretty. "My mother died when I was 6, I said, finally. "Drug overdose. I don't remember much about her except that she tried. She really tried to stay clean for me." Kieran's hand found mine across the table. "And your father?" "Never in the picture. I went into foster care, bounced around a bit. Some homes were okay, some." I shrugged. "Some weren't. I aged out at 18 with nothing but a GED and a lot of survival instincts." "Yet you still want to be a teacher," Kieran observed, "to help children despite everything you went through." "Maybe because of everything I went through," I corrected. "I know what it's like to feel invisible, to believe you don't matter. If I can make even one kid feel seen, feel valued, that's worth something." Kieran's thumb stroked my knuckles. "You're extraordinary, you know that?" "I'm really not." "Silas." He waited until I met his eyes. You are, and I'm going to spend however long it takes convincing you of that. The second date was a week later, a private screening of an animated movie Kai had been begging to see. I know it's unconventional to bring my son on our second date, Kieran said with a slight smile. But I wanted you to see this, all of it, the messy reality of what it means to be with me. I've been living with you for months, I pointed out. I know the messy reality. As the nanny, Kieran replied, this is different. This is choosing to be part of our family. Permanently. Kai fell asleep halfway through the movie, curled against my side. Kieran watched us more than he watched the screen, and when I caught him looking, the expression on his face made my heart race. What? I whispered. Just memorizing this? Kieran replied quietly. In case I'm dreaming. The third date was at Kieran's office. I want you to see where I spend most of my time, he explained. Understand what my work actually entails. Ashford Industries occupied 15 floors of a downtown high-rise. Kieran's office was on the top floor, all glass and steel and stunning views. But what struck me wasn't the luxury. It was watching Kieran work. He was brilliant, patient with his staff, decisive in meetings, capable of explaining complex technical concepts in ways anyone could understand. This was his domain, and he moved through it with quiet confidence. You're staring, he said during a break between calls. You're impressive, I replied honestly. I knew you were successful, but seeing you actually work, it's boring corporate nonsense, Kieran said dismissively. It's not, I argued. You just negotiated a contract that will provide jobs for 300 people. You explained a manufacturing problem to your engineers in a way that actually helped them solve it. You remembered your assistant's daughter's name and asked how her recital went. That's not boring, Kieran. That's leadership. Something shifted in his expression. No one's ever said that to me before. Then they weren't paying attention. He kissed me then, in his office, where anyone could have walked in. It was a declaration. The pack took notice. At the next pack, gathering a monthly social event I attended as Kai's nanny Kieran introduced me differently. This is Silas, he said to the assembled alphas and their mates. He's courting me, officially. The announcement sent ripples through the crowd. Several pack members looked shocked, others disapproving. But Kieran's hand on my lower back was steady, grounding. Congratulations, said an older alpha named Thomas. It's good to see you moving forward, Kieran. Kai needs a full family. He's an Omega, someone muttered from the back. The Alpha Prime bonding with an Omega? Yes, Kieran said calmly. The Alpha Prime bonding with an Omega who saved his son's life. Is that a problem? The challenge in his voice was clear. No one argued. Later, as we danced, Kieran had insisted, despite my protests, that I didn't know how he apologized. I'm sorry about that, he said. The pack can be traditional. They don't think I'm good enough for you, I said flatly. They're wrong, Kieran replied, and they'll learn that. Or they'll learn to keep their opinions to themselves. You shouldn't have to fight your own pack over me. I'm not fighting them, Kieran corrected. I'm educating them. There's a difference. 2 months into the courtship, Kieran took me to meet his parents' graves. I haven't been here in a year, he admitted as we stood before the marble headstones. It's hard, knowing they never got to see Kai grow up, that they died before they could meet him. Tell me about them, I said quietly. My father was stern but fair, Kieran said. He built Ashford Industries from the ground up. My mother was the heart of everything. She kept him grounded, reminded him that success meant nothing if you lost your humanity achieving it. They sound wonderful. They would have liked you, Kieran said. My mother especially. She always said the measure of a person wasn't their success, but their kindness. You embody that. I leaned against his side, offering silent comfort as he talked to his parents' graves about Kai, about the company, about me. I'm courting someone, Dad, Kieran said to the stone. An Omega named Silas who saved Kai's life. I know you'd want to run a background check and interview him for 3 hours, but I'm asking you to trust me. He's everything I didn't know I needed. My eyes burned. On the drive home, Kieran was quiet. Are you okay? I asked. I am now, he replied. I needed to tell them. About you. About us. It feels more real now. The courtship continued. 4 months of careful, deliberate building. Kieran attended my college graduation when I completed my teaching certification. He sat in the audience with Kai, both of them cheering loudly when I walked across the stage. I attended Kieran's business dinners, learning to navigate pack politics and corporate negotiations with increasing confidence. We found our rhythm, our balance, and through it all, the bond between us deepened. Not the biological bond of mates yet, but something just as powerful: trust, respect, love. "I want to make this permanent," Kieran said one evening as we sat on his balcony watching the city lights. "I want you to be my mate, officially, permanently." "Is this a proposal?" I asked. "This is me asking if you're ready," Kieran clarified. "The ceremony can wait, but I need to know, do you want this as much as I do?" I thought about the terrified Omega in the alley 6 months ago, about how far I'd come, about how much I'd changed, and about how much Kieran had changed too, how he'd opened up, become more present with Kai, started building a life instead of just going through the motions. "Yes," I said. "I want this. I want you. I want us." Kieran's relief was palpable. "Then let's plan a ceremony. Nothing huge, just the people who matter. I want to officially claim you as mine, and I want everyone to know it." "Okay," I agreed. "Let's do this right." 6 months later, I stood in front of a mirror adjusting my tie for the 10th time. "You look fine," Marcus said from the doorway. "Stop fidgeting." "I'm about to be officially bonded to the Alpha Prime," I replied. "I'm allowed to fidget." Today was the mating ceremony. After months of careful courtship, after finishing my first semester of college with straight A's, after countless family dinners and quiet evenings with Kieran and Kai, today we made it permanent. The ceremony was small, just Kieran's closest pack members and the people I'd come to care about during my time in his world. Kai was beside himself with excitement. "I get to be the ring bearer," he kept announcing to anyone who would listen. When I walked down the aisle a path through Kieran's garden and saw him waiting for me, my breath caught. He was beautiful. Not in a conventional way, but in the way that mattered. Strong, protective, gentle, mine. The ceremony itself was a blur. Traditional pack vows, the exchange of rings, and then the moment I'd been anticipating with equal parts excitement and nervousness. The claiming bite. Kieran drew me close, his lips brushing my ear. "Ready?" "Yes," I whispered. The bite was sharp, brief, and then pure electricity flooded my system as the bond snapped into place. I could feel Kieran, his love, his protectiveness, his absolute certainty that this was right. And he could feel me. My joy, my relief, my overwhelming sense of home. "I love you," he murmured against my neck. "I love you too," I replied. The celebration afterward was joyful. Kai danced between us, delighted to have two daddies now. The pack members who'd initially been skeptical about their Alpha Prime bonding with a nobody Omega had been won over by time and proof that I genuinely cared for both, Kieran and Kai. That night, after the guests left and Kai was asleep, Kieran pulled me onto the balcony overlooking the city. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked, "saying yes to that first dinner?" I thought about the scared, exhausted Omega who'd saved a child in an alley, the one who'd been working 3 jobs and barely surviving. "Not even for a second," I replied honestly. "You changed my life." "You changed mine," Kieran corrected. "You brought light back into this apartment. You gave Kai the stability he needed. You gave me everything." He kissed me under the stars, and I felt the bond sing with happiness. "Thank you," I whispered, "for seeing me when I was invisible." "You were never invisible," Kieran replied. "You just needed someone to look." Months turned into years. I finished college and started teaching at the elementary school near Kieran's office. Kai grew into a confident, kind boy who still introduced me as the hero who saved me. The bond deepened. I learned to read Kieran's moods through our connection, to send him comfort during stressful meetings, to feel his pride when I aced exams or handled classroom challenges. And when I went into heat now, I wasn't alone. Kieran was there, taking care of me, proving over and over that I was cherished. 5 years after that night in the alley, I woke up to Kai, jumping on our bed. Silas, guess what?" "What, little wolf?" I mumbled, still half asleep. "I told my teacher you and Daddy saved me," Kai said. "And now I have to write a story about heroes. Can you help me?" I smiled, pulling him into a hug. "Of course." Kieran appeared in the doorway with coffee. Kai, what have we said about jumping on the bed before 7 a.m.? But this is important, Kai protested. It can be important after Silas has coffee, Kieran replied, handing me a mug. I took a sip and watched my mate and our son bicker affectionately about appropriate morning behavior, and my heart was so full it ached. This was my life now, not perfect, but real, honest, built on choice and love, rather than obligation. I'd saved a child in an alley, not knowing he was the Alpha King's son, and in return, that child and his father had saved me. The end. Thank you for reading Silas and Kieran's story. If you enjoyed this journey, please like and subscribe for more Omegaverse stories. What should we explore next? Another Alpha King romance or something completely different? Let me know in the comments.